Hello everyone, I'm Marvin. I'm a progressive psychedelic trance artist. I'm a professional sound designer and I'm also a teacher for electronic music production. And today we're going to discuss whether if you need a label or not. So last November in the Fractal Sounds Discord server, I asked producers to send me their questions regarding releasing with a label or self-releasing their own music. Basically any question in regard of that topic. I'm sorry that it took long to make this video. I was in a rush with mixing and mastering orders, and I had some samples and preset to deliver with that deadline. But now I wouldn't say all is clear, but I am not in a rush anymore, and I have more time for my deadline so I can make this video. And we're going to dive right in, but before that, I have two disclaimers that I want to make, and these are important because they're gonna shape the angle of today's video. Actually, let's make three disclaimers. The first one is that it's going to be a very talky video. I'm gonna make my best to make it fun and entertaining, but this is really to convey information. So the second disclaimer, and probably the most important here, is that for this video, I'm going to base this information in 15 years of experience. I've released with small labels. I've attempted self-releasing. I released with some big labels. And as I said, many demos. I've dealt with all of that stuff. So I'm going to base today's information on that. But this is still limited to, what I've been through, my experience. There's also some stuff that, I've heard, I've been told by sources I can trust that some of the stuff is going on in the way that is going to be described. But you might experience something that is different. It's not 100% guaranteed it's going to go that way. But at the same time, I'm pretty confident that this is going to give you a good overview of what's going on, especially if you're new to this. And, obviously, if you answer some of these questions that we're going to cover today, well, this is probably going to be some really good information for you. Just don't take it as a, ultimate truth. In a sense, this is true, but, you might be if I say that you can't have an opportunity, or you most likely can't have an opportunity in a certain way, doesn't mean you can't. It's just like you might want to direct your energy and attention to some of the things that we're going to discuss, and other things you might want to avoid them. Anyway, the disclaimer is that it's on my own experience. And the third one, it's kind of related a bit to the second one, but you need to understand that psytrance is, in the whole spectrum of electronic music, it is still an underground genre. If you compare to, let's say, tech house or just any main genre that is played on main stage, obviously, if you want to experience, you want to send demos, you want to experience the release process with these styles of music, it might be different than psytrance. In and all, overall, psytrance, the rate at which opportunity arise and the rate at everything that is going on in psytrance is just slower. There's less opportunity globally going on than, let's say, if you try to release a tech house track, or once again something that is more popular. Logically, psytrance, it's underground, it's less popular, so it means there's just globally less opportunity available. There's less labels, so you need to keep that in mind. So let's say you're a bass music artist, some of the stuff might not 100% apply to you. Most of it will, but you might experience a different dynamic because you're in a different scene than the psytrance scene. So you need to also understand that and keep that in mind. First of all, let's discuss what you as an artist want from all this. This is important because we're going to answer some questions, and depending of your goal and what you want to get out of it, you might actually take a different path. Let's take example A, which I think is one of the most common one, but you want to get your music and share it with as many people as possible. You want to get gigs, play festivals, take part in the whole psytrance culture, right? That is example A, and it's very important to, there's aspect of getting gigs, of growth. This is important. And you could have example B, and I know because I have some students that are more in line with this. It's more of a hobby, and you don't want to access stage presence. You don't necessarily want to play gigs. you want to participate in the culture by creating some of the music, sharing it, but not necessarily focused on growth and just generating opportunities at all costs. So this is different. So you need to establish and position yourself of where are you with this, because with the following information, you might take it differently than someone else. Let's go with this question. What are the benefits of using a label versus self-release? This is a big one. And this is a very long answer to that, but I will start with just if you want to understand what a label is and what a label can do for you, it says it in the name because you're being labeled. There's a stamp of approval being put on you or disapproval. Sometimes you want to actually avoid that, but yeah, you're being labeled. So this is probably one of the strongest point, being associated with a label. And I'll start with that. I'm gonna still answer this question while answering other questions, but let's start with this, just really understanding that you're being labeled and there's a big game of association that comes with it. There's another question with this one, and it's gonna bring up some very interesting points, so I'm gonna answer it right now. Do you still have to do self-promo, or they do it as well? So we're still on the releasing with label and self-release thing. Labels should do promotion for sure. Promotion. Pro means forward, motion means movement. So it's like pushing your music forward, pushing it to the right places, to the right people. So that's another big aspect of labels. They should, in and of themselves, just by the fact that they are labeled, they should be promotion, again, because you're being associated with that label. But just beside the fact of being associated, they should promote through different platforms. There's a release process that we're going to discuss, but the promotion, there's obviously the social networks. So social network is one part of the promotion, but there's as well connections, handing over. There's some labels that have like an actual promo list where they send music by email to DJs, producers, influent people that have either radio shows that either could play your music live. So yeah, they do that. And if you want to evaluate if a label is good for you, like I'd say the better they can do what I just described, the better it is for you. So there's that promotion. Yes. Now with the self-release route, you have to understand that if you go in your own direction, like, can you do all that I just described? Can you do it as good as the label can do? Especially if it's like a big respected and established label. I don't think so. But maybe you're going for the long run and you eventually want to build on that and get there. But you need to understand that if you right now at the beginning you take that route, you don't have access to all that promotion network. And yeah. So initially the question was, do you still have to do self-promote yourself? Well, yes. Short answer is yes. And if you don't, that's just like you're shooting yourself in the foot. So even if you go in the direction of releasing with the label, it's not like, well, I don't have to do anything. It's just like it's going to be a common effort. And instead of having all that burden on you, well, you have the label connection, you have the label network, and you have all that promo power that you can join forces. So, but do you have to? Well, it depends, but it should be really brilliant to do so. And if you don't, it's like you're kind of wasting your own time a bit and the label's time as well. I have another question still in the same, because they're all connected. So I'm answering them back to back because they bring a lot of points. And after that, we can refer on these points for answering more easily questions that will be coming up. But here's the question. Can a label increase your reach of your music? And I'm going to answer it in a different way. I am gonna say it should, because if it doesn't, it's it's not worthy. And a bit like how I just answered, if you feel that you can do as good as the label can do in terms of promotion, so you're not getting some of the benefits, you're not getting some of the pros, you're getting some of the cons. Well, yeah, it should help with the reach. So that's the answer. Yeah, it should. So it's a yes plus plus. So yes, it should. Can you take it back and release it with another label? Well, first answer would be no, because that's kind of the deal. And if you feel you want to do that, it's because the exchange is not good. The deal is not a good deal. So maybe you're not getting that promotion, maybe you're not getting some of the pros of releasing with the label, and maybe you want to take it back. So but yeah, you can't. But in some contracts, there's some stuff that is you can, after 10 years, for example, you can contract will be rediscussed, or sometimes contract end after a certain amount of years, so you can check that out. But yeah, so I'm gonna kind of think on how you ask the question, and the answer is definitely no. So if you but yeah, also think about maybe the reason why you would want to do that, and that could also sort of guide you for other questions when it comes to choosing the right label, and even maybe choosing that or self-release, right? Another question: what if they ask you to change something but you don't want to do it because it's not what you like? That kind of ties back a bit to deciding whether to go with self-release or with a label. But you also have to ask, like, but it's a spectrum though. There's the standardization, and sometimes if you go and you want to sign with a label, usually labels, like I've said, you're being labeled. There's a sound. If you think about some labels, you can definitely think about a sound. Like I don't like. Sometimes I think about, like, if you take Safari, for example, has a very template-y sound, in a sense that, like, you can feel it sounds like Tech Safari. Xenon is another example. There's some label have flavors, and if it kind of makes sense, they might ask you to change some of the stuff to fit a bit more in that flavor. But so yeah, if you want to go with that label, it would be weird for you to not want to do those changes. But again, it's a whole spectrum, because let's say it's not this what I just described, but let's say they really want to change and go in a different artistic direction, then maybe it's not a good fit. And usually this will be done before the track is signed. So let's say you send a demo, and maybe this will open a discussion where it's like, oh, we like the track, but could you change that or that? But yeah, so the simple answer would be, if you don't want to change it because it compromised the artistic taste, and it's not, you don't feel it, I'd say just don't, and maybe look for another opportunity to release somewhere, because, like I said, this will all be discussed usually before signing the track. Okay, yeah, I wanted to talk about standardization, because also it's possible that you get asked, they will want to mix and master your own track, and you might feel that it's changing a bit your track. But don't forget, there's also like a standardization process. So when you submit stuff, it needs to reach that potential. So, but it's all, like, I'd say, just make sure what is the nature of those changes that you're being asked to change. That if it's artistic, you can be a bit more picky, I'd say. But if it's like they want to change your track, in a sense, they want to make it better when it comes to standard, I'd say, sometimes it's okay to change, to make these change. Let's go with another question. How do you identify a good label from a bad one? Asked surprisingly often in other server I'm in. So far in this video, I've talked about a couple points that labels should do. So And we can talk about before the social networks and before the internet, labels had sort of more stuff to offer to artists, because let's say in times of vinyl, they would take all, they would deal with the distributor and make sure everything, your music is being distributed, printed in CD and all. And these days, like I said, the major thing with label is promotion, also being associated with the network of that label. So I'd say the bigger the network, the better the promotion, the better the label is. Also, another thing we discussed, like how transparent they are. And I would add like the opportunities they can generate. And I'm gonna bounce on another question. Can labels help with producing, networking, and getting in touch with other producers for collabs, etc.? Like, yes, they should, and that a good label should do that. That's also how you can spot a good label from a bad label. Not bad like bad label, but just like a label of like lesser value, let's say, for you. Yeah, so it should. And let's say you're releasing on XYZ records, and you're an emerging artist and there's some high profile artists there. So just being able to reach and be on that same label, it's good for you, and they should like work with you and like getting you some collab opportunities or remix opportunities. Now let's take another direction. I'm going to talk more about the submission process, submitting tracks to labels. There's some questions regarding that. Should you only send a track to one label at a time? Okay. So, and there's other questions for that, but yes and no, in a sense. For example, don't send like an email where there's like, you can see in CC like 93 different emails of, so label, they open that and they see like all these different email address, and they open the SoundCloud link and it's been played like 150 times. Don't do that. What you can do at the same time is create individual emails, create individual SoundCloud link for each label, and you can even just clearly label like the demo for XYZ record, and then send one email, one thoughtful email to each label. You can send a batch and then wait for answers, and then if there's no commitment going on, you can send another batch if needed. Yeah, hopefully that helps. So one at a time, yes and no, but you can do it like as described. It's okay to, I'd say, send and in any case, you shouldn't be like sending industrial volumes of tracks, because logically your music can't fit like a huge number of labels. I'd say, 5 to 6, 7 labels maybe. But again, depends on the style you play. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm really nailing on the psytrance style. But yeah, so you can send that first batch, but like a batch of individual demos. Another question in that subject: how long to wait for an answer from a label before submitting the demo to another? Like, if you're really impatient, you can do like I described, a batch, and then wait. I'd say after 2 weeks, it's pretty much game over. After 1 week, it can still happen. Sometimes like maybe the A&R is touring or doing something else. Then they're not like every day like coffee in the morning, headphones on, and then listening to demos. Sometimes they have like other stuff to do. But yeah, after 2 weeks, your opportunity is pretty much not gonna happen, I'd say. But so yeah, if you're impatient, you can send a batch. If you really want to play the patient game, you could, instead of sending a batch, you can send to one label, wait 1 week, send to one label, wait another week, and then so on. What do I do if I've submitted my track to multiple labels and multiple labels want to sign it? Well, that's good. So if you're in that situation, well, I'd say also look for the long game, because that's kind of what you want, is to develop a long-term relationship with labels, because at some point you'll also if you're released a couple times with the label, you won't have to go through all the big like process of sending demos. You'll have a link with someone. You'll be able to like send new track, new work, and then it's going to be easier to plan development and release on a long period of time, for long term. So I'd say, yeah, look for that, discuss, also check what are other terms and go for the better terms. But mostly the long time perspective and the vibe you're getting from the person you're dealing with. Any chance to get your music released if it's quite different from what you usually produce? If yes, out to spot labels willing to diversify and accept tracks that are a bit more peculiar. That's not easy. Um, so first, for the any chance to get your music released if it's quite different from what is you, I'd say okay. So I'm gonna assume you're talking about a label. So no, because like we've discussed, label most of the time they have a sound, and if they're too like wide open, sometimes it means like that's kind of the point. A label is to develop a brand, develop a sound. So if it's too like all over the place, I think it kind of means that there's not enough of a brand that has been created. So, and I'm thinking like stuff that is different from what is on the label. If it's different from what you've done in the past, that's a whole other discussion, but that's not how I understand it. So I'd say it's possible, but I wouldn't advise to. Okay, so and let's say we talk about a label that has a brand, that has a sound. um they might, there's a level of like, you could be peculiar in some aspect, but it needs to tie back to the label sound in some ways, you know for example, you can have like a label that release more full-on stuff with rolling bass line, but you can have like a track that is more offbeat but still has, for some reason, like some of the leads or the signature of that label. That can happen. And yeah, I would advise to, there's always a compromise. Like you need to feel like you're making music you like, and you can, that can also fit to a label's sound. Okay, this one I like a lot, but it's not super easy to politically correctly answer that. But okay, so what's usually the most important for labels between industry standard quality versus artistic touch? Um, yeah, I'd say okay, so it's gonna go more, in my opinion, and what I've seen, it's more towards industry standard quality. Think about it. I don't feel in psytrance a lot of people are in for the money, but not many people is here to like owe money to bank and not be able to like live to a certain decent amount. And a lot of people in the industry, they're not like, they have jobs and they participate and they create some stuff, but ultimately like it's a hierarchy in a sense that like promoters that are going to book you for gigs, they will do it because they think it's beneficial for their event to do so. And once again, there's a spectrum, because there's some promoters that really like to like discover new artists and be the one that showcase that new artist and so on. But there's no promoters that is going to be like, I'm going to book like unknown geniuses just for the sake of it and then have like 10 people at the event. It's an industry, so it's all related. So labels, they will want to have stuff that hits, stuff that reach. And it just depends on different brands, different individuals. Some are more open. If you can have, the best is to have like I call it the 50/50 rule. I've spoken about this in some streams, I think, but it's like, try to get that 50% of that like industry standard quality template structure. And then once you have that and you nail that properly, you can have some of the whole 50% that's left, you have your own flavor. And if you can manage a good balance with that, labels should be open to your music. But you really need a strong, maybe even more than 50%. But yeah, I like the 50% concept. But yeah, you need to have a strong structure and a strong standardization to what's in there. And it's always like I feel that I don't necessarily feel like everything the scene is super open to new stuff. Ironically, I feel like uh yeah, as psytrance scene, we like to call ourselves open mind, but I feel sometimes it's psytrance is a really, it's a really tight tunnel of possibilities. And but yeah, I don't blame anybody. Like I've said, it makes sense for labels and artists to have stuff that hits, because ultimately it all ties back to what you want. If you're an artist, you want to reach as many people as possible and get gigs and growth. You're gonna aim more for that. But yeah, hopefully I've answered your question. It's like it's a balance. It's a spectrum, but I feel it tilts more to the industry standard side. Okay, so this is a long video. I was expecting that, but I see my camera battery just like almost dying. So what I'll do, I feel like I've covered a lot of grounds, and I'm gonna answer one last question. But if you want more of these, like inside Fractal Mentorships, you have direct link, direct contact. So you can have some advice, you can discuss some of that stuff, and there's more and more questions that, like, as an artist, that are very normal and that you ask yourself. So there's always that opportunity. Aside from that, there's also Fractal Sounds Discord server, which I think is a really great place to hang. I really love the vibe that's in there. Very helpful, very in French we would say bienveillant. So like, people are here to help each other, and that's what I wanted. So there's that too. So you can go on the Discord server and ask your questions. But like I said, there's one last but not the least. Okay, it's like a big chunk. So is it possible to sign on a psytrance label without having any contact to some label members? I only see people signing that are deep in the scene, and if it's the case, they will have the opportunity to talk to label owners and get an option to send in their music. I don't think there's an opportunity for lab lurch. You need to be part of the scene, and you need to do party often enough. If you are not part of the scene, you will never get an opportunity to sign. Only because you do some great music, the market is too full of music. Okay, and the end of the question is, am I wrong? So you are yes and no. So what? Yeah, you are, you have a perception, which is, I'm gonna start with why the correct part, the yes part. So we are social creatures, and it's the same for networking with music. If you hang out and, if you talk to some people genuinely, and you make some true connections, true human connections. If you talk to some label owner and then later you send a demo, it's, of course, now that person knows you, sees that you sent a demo, so now there's a connection there. And there's also a phenomenon that you can observe in the psytrance scene, is like, people that have been there for a long time, they are very well established, and there's some closed circles. Like there's some labels that they don't even like take demos, because like you can't even submit demos because they don't need to. They don't need to. They can reach to some artist, and then it's like the other way around. They reach you, and it's not like you don't have to submit some stuff. So there's that. But yeah, I wanted to say, like, every, like, connections, making connections, yes, that helps. So that is the yes part. That is, and yes, there's some closed circles. Now for the no part, yeah, I said yes because yes, that dynamic is present, but the no part is like, it's not the only reality, and it's not the only dynamic at play in the scene. There's some labels that are genuinely looking for new artists, and you can sort of, I think it's hard to like shot directly into a major label because it's not the route I've had. But you can like reach a decent label, and then it's just going to bloom some other connections for you, other opportunities, and then it sort of creates some connections, but like just digital, and not like connection that you have to work and be in the party, and party with the right guys. And there's still some people in the scene that really love music and want to participate in that culture, and are looking for artists that wants to do the same, that wants to participate in the culture as well. So there, it's possible, but ultimately you have to make some quality music. That's the thing. There's for okay, so for gigs it's different. For gigs it's different, but for label opportunities, they won't sign. It's not because you're a cool guy that a label will sign some music. They want some quality stuff, so that's different. For gig opportunities, yeah, so having friends, there's I don't know, I don't want to go in there, and I want to go in that energy, but yeah, having a spot on stage is different than signing a track to a label. They're very different dynamic. It's connections can help you get some gigs, and that's why there's there's some DJs that don't produce their own music, and they're just they know the right people, and they not saying they're not good or whatever, but they have some opportunities. But it's different dynamic when it comes to signing your music. Ultimately, that's a very, if you lack some motivation, and if you feel yourself becoming cynical, there's some words of hope, because ultimately good music will get you somewhere. So if you feel stuff is not happening for you, just go back in the studio and make some better music. Not saying your music is not good, but continue your growth, make some better music, have some fun as well, because if fun is not there anymore, it's not a good sign. Just go back to having fun, and this will help you grow as an artist. And there's that dynamic present. Good music will eventually sign. I still believe that to this day, after 15 years. Good music will get you somewhere for sure. All right, I feel like I've took a last look at the question. I think I've answered most of them, and I've at least touched on all these different subjects. I've done my best truly to go fast in this video, to be to have some short answer, but you have to understand that the English is my second language, and I have ADHD. So yeah, hopefully that you were able to listen to the whole video, and hopefully that was helpful, because that's really the goal. And that's just my humble opinion. That's just after like 15 years of experience, and I've dealt with some, like a lot of situations, a lot of label promoters as well. We haven't touched that much the like gigs and promoter side of things. Not sure I want to go there, but at least I answered your question. So don't forget to check out Fractal Sounds Discord server. Lots of cool stuff happening in there. And if you need some closer mentorship, some closer help, check out Fractal Mentorships. The link is in the description. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. And yeah, the word of hope is really just continue to have fun. And I still believe that good music will get you to the correct places. Gonna see you soon. Happy producing.